Okay, thank you. Right, welcome everybody, good afternoon, and Happy New Year on the end of February, and I'm sorry, I've got some very bad news for everyone. Summer finishes on Saturday. The year is racing along, and this is going to be a really fast-paced year, I think, with all the things we need to consider in local government. So, order of business. Are there any conflicts of interest that need to be declared for items of decision? Can't think of them now. If you think of them in the item, that would be appreciated. Apologies. We've got an apology from Joe Hayes. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Craig, second to Councillor Beggs. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Public forum. We've got no public forum. Items not on the agenda. There's a separate item that was circulated separately on the building. Do we need
two separate items?
Two separate. Well, David's one was a gendered item. Yes. To be separate under separate cover.
Yes.
But
and the other was a building and planning report,
which we need a resolution to accept. Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Seconded Councillor David. All those in favour of accepting those, say aye.
Aye.
Now, in terms of the order, what I'm proposing is, since we've got visitors in the room, we will do Aratoi, Wairarapa, Destination Wairarapa and Business Wairarapa now, and let them escape. Then we'll go back and do the procurement policy, and then we'll do the minutes, and then carry on with the rest of the agenda if everyone is in agreement. Mm-hmm. All right. Sorry, Stephanie. Right. So the first item then that we're going to discuss is the service provision for Aratoi. Welcome, Sarah. No?
Chair, so Sarah isn't here. Could we do the other two first?
Okay, let's do the other two first. So we'll do Destination Wairarapa and Robin.
Page 39.
Page 39, thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much. Just before Anna gets started on her report, I just want to highlight one particular point which is in the report. And I'm in the hospitality business, so I'm very acutely aware of some of these problems. And that was, we had a major problem on the Hill Road on the 2nd of November. We had a lot of events going on, and people couldn't get over the hill. And it's all right to take the alternative route, you know what that's like. That's just not feasible. Most of these people are coming for the day. So you can be very well organised on events and have a lot of things going on, and you can be completely stuffed by one event. And it certainly, when you're in the business, you do feel really acutely aware of the problem. So I know that's not the agenda item per se, but as a council, should be very aware of that real risk to the Wairarapa and any events that people put on, because it's not just the people that get here and don't spend the money, it's the poor event organiser trying to put the event on and there's no one turns up, or few turn up. So I just want to make that point before Anna deals with the report. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for that, Robin. Look, I agree with you. That's a major. That road is a major risk for the whole of the Wairarapa.
Hope you've signed the document.
Yeah, I know there's alternatives.
I'm sure there won't be too many people disagree. Right.
Kia ora. Well, today we're here to talk about Q2, which ended December. As you rightly pointed out, we're at the end of February, and it just the year is tracking along pretty quickly. At the end of last quarter, as Robin also mentioned, we begin our event season during that quarter, and there is a lot on at that particular time in November. Also, there wasn't a major event that usually happens in that time of year, which is Toast Martinborough. And that event in particular gives us an injection of cash into the region. And generally it's not just South Wairarapa that benefits from it, it comes further afield because of the great work that Transit does at moving people through the region to make sure they can attend the event and safely get home afterwards. I can only assume that those two events, not having Toast Martinborough and also the impact that the hill closure or that accident had on that particular date, meant our domestic tourism numbers were down, whether we were looking at accommodation or spend, because we were starting to track up, if you recall, last time I was here, we were starting to look a bit more positive. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what the next quarter information comes out. Retail spend in January has been up in general, so that's the world line, that's your FPOS receipt. So their initial report is just immediate data, what's up, what's down. Then MB takes that information away and they work out whether it's a tourism dollar or whether it's local, and we don't get that information till further down the track. I think the last quarter, or this sort of summer quarter, is going to be a game of two halves. I think what's going to happen is leading up to December, people were holding on to their cash, still concerned. Of course, as we know, the economy is still going through some tough times and may continue into 25. That's yet to be seen. But then the sun came out eventually in January. And all of a sudden, Wairarapa put on its smiley face and did everything that we wanted it to do, and it was glorious. And people have come, and they've come, and they've come, and they've come, and they've been around. And so that second half of that summer, which is finishing on Saturday, looked really good, and we had great visitation. So I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, that we're going to see some positivity in terms of spend and accommodation, which is kind of the only figures that we get. Lots of events on, lots of activity, because this is the time that we're the busiest, which then leads me to a little comment on when we're not so busy. So this is a little bit of forward stuff, and I'm very happy to take questions on what I've said here. But looking to the future, the current government has just recently changed the Minister of Tourism. She's been in the role for 4 weeks and she's come out swinging. She is following their policy of increasing export. Growth and export is their catchphrase. And she has said she wants tourism visitor numbers, international visitor numbers, to be pre-COVID before the end of the year, and eventually export earnings and tourism to be above agriculture in the future. That's a stretch target. That's a target, though, however, we can certainly participate in because they're looking to increase numbers regional, so it's regional dispersal is what they're looking for, and off-peak. As we all know, we're pretty full through generally December, January, February, and then after that, on sort of spring and autumn, we sort of drop down. But yet, it's still really lovely weather in the Wairarapa, but everyone's back at work and they've got no holidays left. And if the economy is not doing so great, everyone's sort of holding on to their pennies. So we need to build some resilience back into our tourism. And I've been talking about this for some time. We're heavily reliant on domestic tourism, and we need more international tourism to be more resilient, so that, you know, COVID shocks, we benefited. Internal economic shocks, we're feeling it because we don't have enough of that international dollars. So the government recently has announced, 30 million into conservation tourism. We have Mount Holdsworth sitting up here, we've got Castle Point, we've got the Pinnacles. That's all dockland and they're all visitor attractions. They've put 500,000 to Tourism New Zealand to increase promotion into Australia. Australia is our fourth biggest target market or key market for the Wairarapa. They love coming here for our wine, for our food, for our cycling, for our walks. By the way, Tora Walk's going to be on Country Calendar this weekend. Check it out, I'm sure it'll be a good story. Then we have... they've just put 9 million into the 23 great rides, which are targeted at international tourists. We have one that comes into our region, the Rimataka Cycle Trail, and then there's 3 million going to the regional tourism organisations to increase off-peak travel anywhere, and that encourages dispersal. I just want you to know that we're a small team of 3 and we'll still be focusing on that domestic tourism, but I stand here before you and say we will do everything we can to get involved and participate in however we can to get more of those international tourists through this sort of funding opportunity. We're small, but we're mighty, and we'll give it a definite good crack.
I want to add, being in the tourism business, the internationals lately have been amazing. We just got to have them from all around the world, just everywhere. And so it has been a big change in what it was last year. So that's encouraging. And of course, the thing about the internationals, they don't worry about the weather because they're here anyway. They have to be here because they're planned to be here, and the weather's irrelevant. So that's a bit of a plus if you have more of them. It's interesting that campaign going into Australia is being criticised by locals, but it's picked up all around the world. CNN and everything picked up on this campaign, so it might have been a really good success story. 500,000 is probably a very good investment, I would think.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the team?
Yeah, hi Anna. Robin, sorry. Just around that 3 million you just spoke of, will you look at sort of focusing on that dark sky? I know that that's quite a focus for us, the dark skies.
Absolutely.
Off-peak.
Yes, so we cannot apply for the money for it ourselves. We have to join up with someone else, and we have to do it smartly.
Right.
So I will be utilising our relationship with Close New Zealand Wine Trail, so Hawke's Bay, Marlborough and Wellington, to work together to promote that touring track. And when they get to the Wairarapa, absolutely dark sky, without a doubt, because you can do that, so during that peak season, in fact it's better timing to do that. But cycling, hiking, walking, as we know, we are coming to autumn on the 1st, but March, April, sometimes great weather, really settled for us here. There might be a bit of wind at times, but it's still going to be reasonably warm in it. We don't get too hit till sort of July, August, really.
Cool, awesome.
Thank you.
And just one of the things on accommodation.
Yes.
Talking to the Golden Shares organisers yesterday, and they were flat out trying to get accommodation for even the participants in Golden Shares, that the accommodation is so tight in Masterton. Mm-hmm. Is that a problem we've got here now for events, is it?
Yep, absolutely, without a doubt. We could definitely do with some more accommodation. It's, I've just to sidetrack a little bit, I've just met the new GM for Copthorne, and he's fantastic. The Trust House have got some great ideas pumping into the work that they're going to be doing in the region. Copthorne, it's really exciting what they've got coming up, and refurbs and getting involved in events and all that sort of stuff. But still, Copthorne's our biggest, and we need more because everything is full, particularly during those peak times, particularly when we're doing events.
Next year.
Yeah, the thing with the Golden Shares that got me was that it's participants can't even find accommodation. That's not to count the people who are coming here to watch it.
No, exactly.
It's a real problem.
And in previous years they've used Poto House with Wairarapa College as sort of places to stay, but that's no longer operational in that sort of sense. They go everywhere. They have homestays. They do everything they can. But commercial accommodation, usually it's people, supporters. Yeah, but the participants can't find places. So it does worry me when we come to 2026 next year and we've got the Worlds. It will come down to how well we can distribute them further down the valley. And I'm sorry, Sally, I'm looking at you with sort of transit hat on. We've got to be really coordinated in making sure that we let them know they can stay down in wherever, and they'll be brought up and delivered well and in time and in comfort.
We're completely booked out this year for that period. We could have been booked out 10 times at least.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right. Nothing from staff on this one. Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah, I was going to put, yep, that's a discussion.
I just wanted to say, on a positive note, well done on a record number of entries for the AA promotion.
Yes.
17,000 entries.
Yes.
It's incredible.
I know, it's...
They must have been Delighted.
Yeah, they were very delighted. But that's the great thing about AA, and I think that's, look, Barb, our marketing manager, she's really got a finger on the pulse of what to say and who to say it and what the right channels are. And AA is a great magazine for the demographic that's generally coming through here. Because it's people who are self-driving or camper vans is another one. But I still get that magazine and I still read it. There's a lot of people who'll flick through it and they'll fall on an article or a competition, and it will really resonate with them. And what we had on offer really resonated.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you. Thanks for
Just
that.
try it and then David.
I missed a question, Tom. I do apologise.
It's all
Just
right.
one question. Have you noticed with the new website, Anna, if people are staying on longer, or is there more activity? Are we getting more bookings through that? Just I know it's such a wonderful improvement.
Huge amount of engagement.
Cool.
Certainly looking more, going deeper into things.
Yeah.
And also because we do have, we're using that API where we're making sure that all of people in tourism are involved. They've got a profile on newzealand.com, and then we pull forward their profile into our website. All of this activity that's going to be happening with Tourism New Zealand, with overseas bringing more and more people, it'll be going through that platform, and we're well represented. So we're really delighted about how it's all come together, and it's quite timely.
Just one more question.
Yes.
Will we be at Trends again this year?
No. Trends is something that, budgeting-wise, we do every second.
Oh, yep.
But in March, I will be with 140 inbound tour operators, singing the praises of the Wairarapa with Dark Sky and all sorts of all the other trade product that we have currently. We've actually got a new one come on board, which is now Waka, they're qual-marked, which is fabulous to have a vineyard on, which is lovely.
Cool. Thank you.
Councillor David.
I'm just sorry to see that Chrissy's gone.
Yes.
She did a great job.
She's fabulous, and I miss her, and we do need her.
Yeah.
That's product development, that's the international tourism market, that's your dark sky opportunity. It's a shame. I hope that at some point we'll be able to, as a region, get someone like her to come back to work in that space, but we haven't lost her completely because she's gone to Parahua. Parahua and Luna, which is Parahua Resort accommodation in South Wairarapa and Martinborough, and Luna, so they're owned by the same owners. And she's going to be at Trends, and she'll definitely be flying the flag for Wairarapa.
Cool.
Any more comments? Final round of questions? No? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you very much. So we've got a recommendation there on page 39. I have a mover, please. Thank you, Councillor David.
I'll
Second.
second that, yep.
Stella, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Next one is, there we go, Business Y on page 44.
So I thought I'd come up and introduce Nicola Belsham, who's the GM for Business Wairarapa. This is the first time Business Wairarapa reported to Audit and Risk. This was part of the commitments as part of the 3-year funding that they received as part of the LTP, was to provide them an opportunity to report. They'll report on a half-yearly basis, so they'll be at every second Audit and Risk. But I'll hand over to Nicola now.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Kia ora, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to come and present Business Wairarapa. I'm going to take the report that I sent through as read and really just update you, I guess, on other activities that have been taking place. It's certainly been a very busy 6 months. We've really seen a lot of good stuff happening, notwithstanding the establishment of Tupuana business Masterton. So that was led by Business Wairarapa, so that Masterton had equal footing within the region and under the Business Wairarapa umbrella for representing businesses. Our current representation is about just over 1,800 marketing contacts. Had some really interesting data recently, and also borne out as a result of our business needs survey. We're quite a unique region. We have 6,400 businesses across the region. A majority of those, of course, are farms, and farms see themselves as farms, not necessarily as businesses. Out of those 6,400 businesses, just 33 employ more than 50 people. Within that 33, 11 employ more than 100 and 2 employ more than 200. So it's a very different economic landscape to the metropolitan areas. Just last week, we facilitated and hosted Minister Chris Penk, who's Minister of Construction, Building, Manufacturing and Small Business. And he was blown away by that statistic. Of course, he wasn't aware of it himself, but it's our job to take those statistics to central government, because what our businesses lack is that training and capability. All of the government initiatives such as MB's Regional Business Partners Program defaults to the metropolitan areas and central economic development agencies, and we just don't see the trickle down over the hill. Including in that is New Zealand Business Mentors. Their contracts again default to metropolitan areas, and we struggle to get them here. So what we've got coming up for this year is really to put a massive effort behind providing capability and training to our businesses, as was contributed to our business needs survey. The business needs survey has come out of what we've seen increased engagement district-wide of our businesses as the sub-regional associations get stronger, and we're becoming a much more collaborative, inclusive and powerhouse, I believe, for serving our businesses here in Wairarapa. On top of other events that happened this year, of course, we launched our Monopoly Wairarapa edition. We've got 30 game boards left, and that's literally gone all around the world. We had 60 businesses partake in that. It's been fantastic to partner with Destination Wairarapa on that to really showcase Wairarapa as a great place to come and stay and play, but also a wonderful place to come and set up business. We're not a region of mum and dad businesses. The heckles go up on my neck when I hear that. The businesses that we have coming here come from places like Sydney, from Melbourne, from Wellington, from Auckland. They're things like marketing automation companies, digital companies. So we really want to throw some weight behind the infrastructure in Wairarapa around digital connectivity, and of course about our resilience in regards to transport and access, which I believe we've spoken about already. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Betts.
Hi Nicola, thank you
Hi,
so
Bets.
much. Nice to see you. Hey, I've just got a few questions, because in some things you quote numbers and in some things you don't, so I just wanted to ask a few questions. I'd be interested to know what sort of numbers are making use of your 0800 phone number.
It's a bit...
Because it would be hard to get traction on that.
Yeah. We found, so far it's had about a dozen calls, which is not huge, but the providers of the 0800 number are also now including a monthly HR and employment legal advice column in our business fortnightly newsletter. So that comes out monthly, and they've seen an increased engagement or contact from businesses reaching out to them through that.
Right, and the other question I thought your answers to your survey were fascinating.
Yeah.
But also, I noticed that the biggest challenge from those respondents was sales and marketing.
Yeah.
And then in the question where it said, what type of support do you need most, sales and marketing was up there at number 2. I was surprised by that, because I thought most people would have a handle on their sales and marketing.
No, well, the thing is that people are in businesses because they enjoy what they do and they're good at it, but they're not necessarily sales and marketing experts. They don't necessarily have the time and capacity to keep up with the latest trends in Google Analytics. Facebook seems to change its rules every 2 weeks. So, they really do need that support in customer acquisition, keeping those customers, establishing new revenue streams.
So is that something you see an opportunity to do more?
Yes, yeah. What I've been working hard on the past month is recruiting potential trainers to provide this training to our businesses, which includes sales and marketing. And I had a call just earlier from Thrive, which is a US company. Now they're keen to sponsor some training in Wairarapa in that sales and marketing space. The challenge, of course, is the businesses that we have here are not going to pay $1,200 and take their staff out of the office for a half day or full day. So we're trying to create a program that's costing a business between $25 and $85 maximum for a 2-hour workshop. To achieve that, we need independent business sponsors, and I need about $10,000. So far, I've got ANZ over the line for $1,500 and hopefully Thrive over the line for $3,000. So, as I say, it's all work in progress. We remain a volunteer board and one contractor, so it's sometimes chasing my tail a bit.
And just one other thing. And the other thing is, how many monopoly boards did you have to start with?
1,500.
Oh, well done. And my final bit is, one of the reasons why we wanted you to report to us is because we're, our focus is Masterton.
Yes, of course.
It's really good you've got Tupa Ana, but in your next report, can you include some information on what they're actually doing
Yeah,
Masterton-wise?
so I have got a couple of notes here. We're seeing a monthly new member sign-ups for Tupa Ana come through the Business Wire Appa website, which we also see for Carterton, Featherston, Martinborough. We've been supporting the events in terms of marketing and promotion and access to our CRM in order to create RSVPs and trap the data. That's Masterton centric. Their current membership for Tupa Ana Masterton is 110 and growing. But most importantly, Tupa Ana is becoming the go-to for Masterton-centric events and activities, which is giving added credibility to both Tupa Ana Masterton and Masterton as a place to do business.
Yeah, so maybe moving forward too, though, in your reports, if you could say these are some of the particular specific things to that group, it would be really helpful.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
So David, thank you.
Oh, Nicola, I just wondered, I've been hearing lately that new people coming into the area are finding it very hard to get established here with rules and regulations set by our council. Are you hearing the same thing?
The thing is, the fact is that a business that employs 1,500 people has the same regulation as a business that employs 2 people. So it's a government issue. I will say, if you've got a business that works Wairarapa wide, has an office in Greytown, has one in Masterton, and maybe one in Carterton too, well, obviously you've got 3 different councils with 3 different sets of rules. So the compliance can kill business, absolutely. And I've got case studies I'm happy to share with you offline if you like. But, for business to thrive, sometimes I think there's a perception with those of us that are gainfully employed, of which I'm not, I'm a contractor, that businesses are all Fortune 500 companies ripping off the system. Businesses are passionate people that love what they do, contribute to the economy, employ people, and whenever your sports club, your school, your community centre needs a donation or a prize, the first point of call is a business. They give so much to our communities. In the Wairarapa Awards in November, we had 75 businesses enter that. None of them employed more than 20 people. The average was 3.5 probably, and every single one of those businesses collectively have contributed millions to the communities.
Yeah, this was more to do with buildings.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I
that's all right.
get off on a tangent.
A compliment to your Thursday's meeting was very good.
Oh, very good. Going back to that compliance, I think if councils can work together to make it easier for businesses, then you're going to have more businesses, you're going to have more employment, you're going to have more economic activity.
All right, thank you. Any comments?
Yeah, Nicola, at our last Mayor's Task Force for Jobs meeting, a really good report on the fact that the 2, retail and hospitality, were both starting to show upticks in terms of taking on new staff. Are you finding that as Business Wairarapa that things are starting to turn around a bit?
I don't have any specific data on that. I do know that for retailers and hospitality, in spite of the crappy weather, people were here and they were still spending. For instance, I was talking to Laura from the skate park just earlier here downstairs, and she was saying the bad weather is fantastic for the skate park because people spend more time indoors in cafes, etc., etc. So perhaps that bad weather was a good thing for hospitality. People weren't at the beaches, they were in cafes. But as I don't have any specific data, sorry.
Any other questions or comments? All right, nothing further. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nicola.
Matt, for your report. Right, there's a recommendation on page 44. Can I have a mover? Oh,
I've done that.
sorry. Bex can second it. Mayor Gary, sorry, can move it. And Mayor Gary can second it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Now, Corin's in the hot seat. Thank you, Corin. So we'll go back to do oratory on page 35.
35, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chair. So apologies on behalf of Sarah. She's not with us, which is due to a scheduling error on our side, so it's not by her choice. So unfortunately, you get me instead. So I'll take the paper as read, and obviously it's always pleasing to see that they're in progress against KRAs, which go across the whole year, and have also achieved quite a few of their KRAs already, which is a great position to be in. We'll note too that relatively recently, as part of our Treaty of Waitangi events, Aratoi hosted one of those events in the main gallery, and his worship was there for that. So it was fantastic both to have that there. There was 80 members of the community. It was a sold-out event, and it was wonderful for them to support us around that. And also those of us who were at the fundraising exhibition have just recently picked up our paintings that we purchased as part of that. So it was fantastic that was, I think, a success for Aratoi, and also that we were able to support that. And I'll take any questions, but I can't promise I can answer them.
Right. Are there any questions?
I like that green dress you were wearing last time I saw you.
That's a comment.
Hey, yeah, does that, those paintings cost us other revenue?
Well, that's through the Friends, but so I guess that, yeah, it would contribute to that, yes.
Okay.
I was kind of...
I've got
Yeah.
and then I've got Councillor Goodwin.
The paintings, where will they be housed, and will we have the opportunities?
Oh, so there were local artists who contributed those as part of an auction. So people bought those personally. Oh no, as in me. I believe, I think Councillor Lennox has got one. Yeah. So they're personal, not council.
Oh no, that's why I asked.
Yeah. All right. Councillor Goodwin, you've got a question?
Just that Friends funding, is that, they always claim 800 Friends, and they're struggling to raise any money off $25 each. I don't know if that's...
What's the question?
What's the
Are
question?
they, going to live that up or something?
So I believe, so obviously the Friends are separate to Aratoi, the institution, but they're very active in that space. They've got a very active chair, and the auction is part of the stuff that they're doing, obviously, to increase that. And I know that, Aratoi are always encouraging people to join and become a friend. It's relatively inexpensive to do it, and it's a great thing to do if we can, and that's part of the thing that enables them to gather funding outside the funding that they receive from council, or the support they get from Masterton Trust, Lands Trust, by way of the building.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Any comments? My only comment is they've actually achieved a significant number of their KRAs already with 6 months to go.
Indeed.
So my question is, have you set the bar too low?
No, I don't believe so. So we actually just did revise recently, and so we've pushed that up, and we'll continue to monitor that, and that's one of the active conversations that Sarah and I have in terms of creating an environment where there's some stretch, but at the same point not setting up for failure as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've got to not have stretch targets, but you've got to not push the boundary, but just keep moving. Otherwise, you're not moving forward, you're going backwards. All right?
Just just congratulations on the program you offer primary schools. There's 6 late useful classes going through Aratoi at the moment, and they love the program. They always have fun, and they always will do. So keep it going. Thank you.
Farrell.
Anything further? So we've got a recommendation on page 35. Do I have a mover? Councillor Craig, seconded Councillor Bex. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
It's carried. Now we're going to go further back, and we're now going back to the procurement policy on page 65.1. Right, because if I do the minutes next time out of, then I lose my track. Thank you. All right, we're back on track. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie.
Nice. Got a question.
Take your report as read.
Sure. Yep.
All right. Just key highlights. Any further information?
Yep. No, the key highlights would be that we've undertaken a review and we've really identified that it still remains fit for purpose. It's still in line with the government procurement framework, other council policies. So we're largely seeking a rollover of the existing policy today with minor amendments. The policy is supported by a procurement procedure that is under review and development, and I think going forward that procedural and implementation will be a key focus. Yeah, otherwise happy to take any questions, I think, otherwise, yeah.
Okay, questions? No questions? Am I going to be bad cop? Question I have is in the policy, there's no word about, or no consideration about how you monitor the policy, its effectiveness, and also giving us as governors assurance that the policy is actually being followed. Now, you talked about a procurement manual, which is the Chief Executive's domain, but I think it's, in my view, right, I think that needs to come back somehow to some part of governance.
Sure. Okay, so we have a section on monitoring and evaluation in the policy around how we measure success. Are you meaning in terms of reporting back? Is that what you would like to see? Okay.
Yes. And to me, is one of the issues is it's more about what's the process when you're not following the policy. So it's only a policy, so basically you say is because of X, Y and Z, we're not going to follow the procurement policy. Technically we need to, but we're not because of really good reasons. But what's the process and reporting back when that is not followed, I think is really important from a transparency perspective.
Yep, no, I think we can definitely look at some wording around that, yep.
And the other comment I have you updated the dollars from 3 years ago?
They're still as they were previously? No, so they haven't been updated.
My question is, the 20,000 seems a little bit low in today's economic climate of where we're seeing significant cost increases, and is that going to cause a whole lot of additional admin?
I haven't had direct feedback on that, but as David, anything from Finance's perspective that you might like to add on that?
We have looked at some exemptions for that 20,000 to not go to tender for things that are over 20,000 where there's specific reasons to not do that. Usually because we have a preferred supplier that we've worked with previously and we know they have given us value for money. But the 20,000 is a limit that any work over that we need to prove that we're getting value for money, and it has been appropriate, but Maz would like it higher.
Okay.
Well, from a practical perspective, increasing it would be very helpful. But I think we are going to be reviewing the procurement procedure as well, aren't we, Steph?
Yeah,
and we have a lot of...
Yeah, we have said that any implications, that this is scheduled for review in 3 years' time, but if there's a reason that it needs to be brought back earlier, that we would do so if we identify anything through the development and ongoing procedural work that supports this policy.
Yeah, that to me should be reflected in the procedures. Did you want? You can. There you go.
Just remembering the Section 80 of the Local Government Act requires council when if it makes a decision that's inconsistent, that's significantly inconsistent or is anticipated to be significantly inconsistent consistent with a policy adopted by the authority, then when we make that decision, we have to identify what the inconsistency is and the reasons why we've not followed the policy. So at a higher level, if the procurement policy was very clear on action that we took and this council decided not to do that for whatever reason, that we would need to note that when we made the decision. But at a lower level, then that's something, you're absolutely right, Chair, that we should be finding some way of recording that and then reporting that back through to this committee.
Yeah, I mean, or a committee. I mean, the issue for me is it's actually giving us as governors assurance that the policy is working and that when you're using the exemption, right, that those policies are being followed, right? And it doesn't need to be a long, detailed report but to me it's like we had to appoint right? We had to appoint someone to buy some widgets. They're the only supplier. It cost us $25,000. Boom, done, right? It's that sort of almost, but obviously the larger the contract, the more robust discussion needs to be recorded. Go ahead, Councillor Taylor, then I've got Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Just thinking back to the issues with the pod in the skateboard park when that company went into receivership. Are there safeguards in this policy to help prevent that sort of thing from happening again? I can't see it specifically.
So it does cover all aspects from planning and sourcing procurement through to managing contracts, and it does intend to provide principles and objectives to support a approach that would minimise negative impact. I'm not entirely sure of the specific situation you speak on, so I can't speak to that, but I'd say at a general level, the policy principles, and I think that's where it comes down to making sure we have the really good procedural process of information around documentation, managing.
So we should be comfortable that that wouldn't happen again in a similar situation.
Does anyone else want to, Karen? I'm just not aware of the situation that you're speaking on.
I couldn't hear properly.
Just when we got a pod for that was going to be the youth pod at the skateboard park.
Oh, yes.
And the company we went to the first time went into receivership. Just safeguards in this policy. That's possible. Should that sort of thing not to be occurred?
They probably put that in the procedure thing, so
due diligence for supplier and aspects like that, those sort of checks.
Send accounts and stuff like that, depending on the value that we spend, but we make sure that it's a viable entity and there's no like bad debts or impact on the credit value. And we also look at the shareholding.
Yeah. So just to help you there, Councillor, right, I think that should be detailed how that's done in the procedures. So Steph was talking about the next step is to do the procedures manual. I think that's something that should be detailed in the procedure. Obviously, because when you're buying something, if you've got the goods, it's not a problem. But when there's a contract to deliver services that are going to be delivered over a period of time, then that needs to be considered. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councillor Goodwin.
These, I'm aware you chair several audit committees. So my question is, I just want to say time for everyone that you presumably preside over other audit committees that have already covered this approach.
Yep.
Can you just, flick through some suggestions?
I think I have given some suggestions, Councillor.
Oh, all right.
Okay. I mean, I talked about, can we consider the reporting back and the assessment? That to me was the major issue that I thought could be enhanced through either the policy or the procedures. It can fit in either document as far as I'm concerned, as long as it's there and happening. The other thing that some councils are really hot to trot on, and more so than others, it's about focus on whole of life. There is, I've seen, I actually helped write it, but that doesn't matter. There was a whole section in one council's policy on whole of life, so that means necessarily cheaper to begin with doesn't mean better. So, but again, that could actually be a whole section within the procurement process So it's some guidance about how you do that assessment. And I was talking to a supplier of aerators for wastewater lagoons the other day. He says he's getting fed up with all these councils buying these cheap ones from China that only last 2 or 3 years, well, his last up to 25 to 35 years. So why are councils doing that? And I go, that's a really good question. I'd ask the council to say, have you considered the whole of life as part of your procurement process? And that's a really good question. It's in the policy, but my question then on that is there a robust process within the procedures to actually do that assessment? Because it's not a 5-minute job. And depending on what you're buying. So that to me, I don't see any issues with what you're asking me is, have I identified any issues that you think I should have addressed? And I'm saying is, apart from those 2 issues that I've already said, I'm actually comfortable with it as a policy. Now, it's not our job to play in the procedures, but I'd be keen to see some assurance about how that's being done in the future.
We're just going to...
Oh, sorry. Could I just finish that? The point that Tim raised about us giving money for a prefab that obviously they went bust.
Yep.
That again, I'm asking, have you seen some better processes?
Oh, I wouldn't say better, because you can't always examine the financial ability of every company that provides services. I have been involved in where there was a contract that was significantly lower. We looked at behind the company and thought, things aren't great here. I can't go into the details, but confidential. So we actually quizzed the major shareholder to say is, okay, looks like there are 2 shareholders, looks like one shareholder was in the poo, to put it nicely, right? Not liquid. And we said, look, what happens if you need more capital? What happens? And he explained the shareholder agreement to us to say, well, if we need more capital, there's an obligation that the shareholders will provide that cash. We've got the cash, and here's our proof. If he doesn't pay his contribution, then we take his shares at no value, and we've got the cash to do it. So that's something, but that shouldn't be in the procurement policy. That's about going through the process. In the process manual, the question should be asked, is the company, have they got the financial resources to deliver this project over a period of time? It's that sort of question. It's not going to apply to every case. It's sort of, look, it's just the price of doing business. The question I had, did it cost council significantly more, or was it just a delay? Did we council lose any money over it? Did we pay a deposit that we never got back? And was that substantial? And what were the lessons learned if that was the case?
Well, that's what we're talking about, isn't it?
Well, that was a question that Councillor Tim raised, right? We're actually talking about the policy per se at the moment, but it's a good... I don't want to dive into too much detail.
No, do you want me to close that out if you like, just by trying to provide some confidence that, we are equally skilled around the ELT and with our policy people in terms of procedures. So, we'll take that learning and we can write up the appropriate procedure through experience.
I was just wondering, we're doing the procurement at the moment. When do we look at the tendering process again? Because I think that needs to be tidied up, especially in roading. When do we look at that again, David?
What do you mean tidied up?
Rules and regulations. Yeah.
Well, that...
With the whole document.
NZTA procurement procedures are pretty strict and detailed in what they require our engineers to do when they go to market for a shape correction job or a...
Whatever.
The things that are not part of the main contract. So Higgins hold the main contract, and there's a whole lot of work that they do within that contract, and then there's separate pieces of work that they'll tender separately to other contractors. And all of that contracting is done under the rules of NZTA procurement.
And that's within the policy that we've got.
So I'm not sure.
No, I just get worried about the cost of traffic management like every other council in the country.
We won't go there, right? Yep. It's not only...
it's everywhere.
It's everywhere, yeah. But again, we've got a piece of legislation which is actually driving it.
So the legislation needs to change. And then it comes back to health and safety.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we have to comply with that.
Yeah, but
Otherwise our chief executive goes to jail.
Or the
acting one as well.
And you get told off
Yeah.
for failing in your duty.
And can I just, look, we might be talking about under health and safety moving, but, you know, while we're talking about contractors, right, and health and safety, you were aware that Rotorua Lakes Council got attempted to be prosecuted by WorkSafe for a tomo that appeared in Whakarewa Thermal Village, and someone fell and got burnt, right? The judge says, no, that was unreasonable, but that's the focus. Now, yes, the council defended itself successfully, but that would have cost a huge amount of time and legal fees to defend their position. So this is the problem where we're erring on caution.
That's often the way, isn't it? As council, we've got a paper in this on the dangers of solar fluctuations.
Oh, well, let's wait till that item. Right? Okay. Right. Anything further on procurement? No comments? Thank you. So we've got a recommendation here that we note the leadership's approval of the procurement policy. We endorse it. Can I also suggest that we actually ask for, put too much work on you, right, but not a report back, but that you consider how, or that management consider how the policy will be monitored and assurance back to government.
Chair, would you prefer to see that in the policy, because we can endorse, we can include it within the policy?
Okay, all right.
And you can endorse it subject to that
being
included?
Happy, happy. All right. All right.
That's good.
I don't muck around, Councillor. Right, I'm happy to move it. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor David. Any further discussion? You're right.
Yep.
You look puzzled. All right. Harriet?
I'm just glad we got there. Just clarify what the resolution is. Endorses the procurement policy.
As amended?
As amended.
To include a monitoring section of the policy.
Thank you.
You happy with that?
We do have a monitoring section, so I think we need to be a little bit more specific.
Oh, do we?
Yeah.
Putting me on the spot.
Deviations from the policy?
Thank you. Deviations. Yes, we report on deviations. Yeah, reporting on deviations from the policy. Thank you.
Good to have deviance.
Sorry?
Good to have deviance.
Absolutely.
Wrong.
Yep. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
It's carried. Thank you. Next item is 6.1, the minutes on page 24. Taken as read. Any corrections? Can I have a mover, please, for the recommendation on page 24? I'll move. Seconded, Councillor Craig. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
It's carried. Next item, if I'm not mistaken, 6.5 on page 53, our non-financial performance quarter 2 report. Thank you. Oh.
They're not there, are they?
Sorry?
Yeah, they are. It's non-financial.
Non-financial.
Oh, sorry. The financial, where are they?
They're attached.
They are attached.
And
I
the
said a separate item under 6.9, Councillor.
They'll be in the computer.
Keep up, please, Brent.
Yep. Thank you, Josie. Take your report as read. Are there any key highlights or further information you want to bring to the committee?
Certainly. So I have the great pleasure of presenting the non-financial performance report for quarter two. And I say pleasure because it feels like a really good news story. So out of our 41 measures, I can report on 35 of those, and 34 out of the 35 are achieved or on track to be achieved. The remaining one is around resource consents being processed within statutory timeframes, and we've reported that as currently not on track, but will be on track by year end, just due to rounding. So for consistency purposes, we always round to 1 decimal point. If I'd round up to a whole number, we would have been achieving it. So for consistency purposes, I've reported that as not achieved, but on track to be achieved at year end. And that's me. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
Is this also the supplementary, there was a little added bit
On
this
the,
part as well?
There's a table of all the different measures and their performance.
Yeah, what about, can I speak to the supplementary report presented by Christine? No, not yet. The building planning
no,
one?
that's,
No,
that's going to be last on the agenda.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments?
Yeah, report's done.
I've got one comment. I haven't seen an interim result like this around the country so far. What do you think? It's a great report, right?
Great report.
It's actually a really good news story.
We're doing well.
I said to I won't repeat what I said to the chief executive. All right? You're doing very well. Okay.
Thank you.
And that's a team. That's a team, right? It's a team. All right. Thank you for that. Sorry.
Exactly. We're really good at it.
All right.
Throw a fish out.
Things are looking up, Tim. Things are looking
Yeah.
So now moving on. We've got a recommendation on page 54. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Beck, seconded. Councillor Craig. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Our next item is 6.6, page 77. Our emissions reduction plan risks. Thank you, Tony.
Apologies, my battery has given up, so I'll just refer to the right page here so I can talk you through. So this report was prepared in response to a question that came up at the last audit and risk meeting around what would be the risks or implications of not delivering on our emissions reduction plan. So in response, I'm happy to take the report as written. I guess the key highlight just to point out is that based on our assessment, we feel that the likelihood of not delivering on that emissions reduction plan is minimal. That's because we have developed it based on things that are actually programmed, resourced and budgeted for. We also have ELT oversight of that program, and we have a champions group that are working and meeting on a regular basis to make sure that they're updating on where we're at and how we're tracking with that. In that context, the primary risk is really probably more around project management and anything that could potentially go wrong in a project process. And again, we are following our procedures and our sort of project management processes to ensure that we mitigate any risks around those projects. The other point that we have included here is we just took the opportunity, one of our team did a little bit more research just around reporting requirements. That was also discussed at the last meeting. So essentially, in a nutshell, where we are now, Council is not currently required to report on the requirements that we have outlined in there, the sort of what triggers reporting, but we do expect that at some future point we will likely have to. So we will obviously be monitoring that and keeping an eye on that and responding appropriately. The third point we've just added in here too is that historically we have provided an update on the emissions reduction plan and projects and progress with those through to this committee. That was prior to us having GM reports coming through from each of the GM areas. What we are planning to do moving forward is that we will report on the emission reduction plan, that work that's been progressed, say, in Maz's team, through Maz's reports, GM reports, Karen's team through Karen's GM reports, etc. So you'll still get those updates, but you'll get them as part of the GM report and what each GM area is doing to progress that. And then once a year, annually, our team will do a bit of a summary of how we've tracked for the year and what are the priorities we're looking at for the next 12 months ahead, so that we have oversight of that.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Beeks, thank you.
Yeah, hi Tanya, thank you. You talk about local government funding agency and green finance available at lower interest rates. You also note that there's an advantage of these opportunities, but there's a cost to do so. One, obviously, and also that you say that the likelihood of lost opportunities would be more than minor. So can you tell me how we're going to be able to apply for green finance, whether we've got an action plan, and just expand on that a little bit?
My understanding is that there's certain thresholds and certain practices that you have to reach to be able to achieve that. David, I don't know if you're in a position to comment further.
But are we going to go forward in that direction so that we can take advantage of the funding?
Yes, there's criteria we have to meet for the project to achieve green outcome. So if it's building extension to the library, then it will have to be a green building and achieve more than just building a building in order to qualify for a loan interest rate, which is slightly discounted. So we would look at the trade-offs between the extra costs of delivering that and the benefits over the full length of the loan to having that lower interest rate. So they're encouraging us to do it, and
so where we see an opportunity, we'll do our best.
We'll do it.
If it fits,
Yes.
it fits.
Yes.
Okay, so it'll be on our radar.
Yes.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
The only question is, when David said they, who's they?
The local government funding agency.
Okay, because I know for a fact that the big banks at the moment are saying that unless you meet certain climate criteria, they won't issue a loan to you, or if they issue it to you, it'll be at a higher rate, which I completely object to myself. It's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I suppose there's a degree of push and pull in the whole climate space, and some people are trying to pull us along, and others are pushing us from behind. The whole community is on a path to stopping climate change if we can.
Softly.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? No comments? Thank you, Tanya. We've got a recommendation on page 77 that we received the report. Can I have a mover, please? No, it comes from Marama. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Craig. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. It's carried. Next item. Welcome back, Stephanie. Should have kept you up, shouldn't I? I just want to get your steps up for the day, setting the audit. Key policies modified by the Audit and Risk Committee, page 81, item 6.7.
Thank you. So this is a 6-monthly report that we provide to the committee on the status of key policies that this committee monitors. There are 10 policies monitored by the committee. 3 of those are listed as due for review, with the remaining 7 being current, although one of them was the procurement policy, which has just been endorsed, so we can update that one. The other one is our dangerous, affected and sanitary buildings policy. That is currently out for community consultation at the moment. Council approved a statement of proposal earlier this month, and the policy has been updated and amended to take into account legislative requirements and improve transparency, and to clarify how the policy is applied within Council's broader strategic context, and that will then go through a hearings deliberations process and be finalised in May. The second one is the risk management policy, and that will be dealt with under the separate update on the agenda. Also provide an overview of the wider policy work program. At the moment, we're quite bylaw focused at the moment, so there are key projects for the team for the year around our dog control, our alcohol control, and our wairarapa consolidated bylaw are probably some of the key pieces that the team is working on at the moment. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions? So like the previous item, sorry, the previous item, non-financial, basically everything's on track.
Yeah, on track or in progress, really.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, why I sort of am keen to see this is there are a couple of councils, including another Audit and Risk Committee, where we found that a couple of the bylaws had actually expired. So they had to start all over again. Now that's never a good look. And if it's an alcohol policy, it's really, really difficult to then go back and re-establish your alcohol policy because you demonstrate there's a need for the policy before you start the policy. So that's the last thing we want to do is drop those sort of critical.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is...
And yeah, that's why they're a big focus for us at the moment, is they do have the bylaws in particular, those legally review due dates, but with those we're not in a position where they're going to be expiring anytime soon. The main one would be the Wairau Consolidated Bylaw, which would lapse in June 2026, but we're aiming to have that all finalised, the review completed by August this year, so well in advance.
Well before that performance appraisal with the community on the 11th of October.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, right?
That's been our time in focus.
Yes. So that puts the effort on this team, doesn't it?
It does.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. I think now the question I have, and we'll talk about it when we get to the audit report, I note that they didn't like our sensitive expenditure policy.
Yeah, I saw that. We do have in there that the mayor's the CE's expenditure is reviewed by the deputy mayor and approved by the mayor in the current policy. So we did try and provide for that removal of that circular arrangement, but if there's more that needs to be done, then we might need to have a discussion.
All we'll do is we'll defer the question to Audit New Zealand when they're on screen later on. We'll just highlighting that. But technically, what we're saying is that our sensitive expenditure is not due technically until June 27. So, but I think, David, correct me if I'm wrong, where's their priority on it? I think it was quite high, wasn't it? It was necessary?
It was an urgent.
It was an urgent?
No,
necessary.
it's not an urgent.
It's a necessary, which is basically, you look at the original timing, they wanted it done in the next 6 months. Really? Okay.
And I think we did a recent wider review of that policy, and if we do need to bring back a more smaller amendment, I think we could do that out of cycle if required.
I think it's another thing we can bring back through reporting of what has been approved and put it at a significance level rather than minor stuff, but bringing it back through this committee.
Can I got some bad news for you there, David? In terms of Audit New Zealand, they don't believe that any sensitive expenditure is minor. Okay? Even paying a $5 bus fare is not minor. All right? I've had this debate with them, and they're saying it's a matter of public record. I'll put my hands up and move on. Right. Thank you again, Steph. You prefer Steph or Stephanie?
Yeah, Steph's good. Thank you.
Good?
Yeah.
Short and sweet. Okay. All right. So we've got a recommendation there. Can I have a mover, please? Moves the Mayor, seconded Councillor Marama. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Health and Safety Report. Ben, are you doing this alone?
Yeah, Kane's actually not well today.
Oh, isn't he?
No.
Oh.
So you're the safety and he's not the health.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't know who's who. Right.
What page?
So that is page 86, item 6.8.
Good afternoon, Council. I take the report as read. Just a few quick updates. Continuing with the work around contractor audits. Made some really good progress in regards to the Health and Safety and Wellbeing Advisor being part of the procurement process. Is also part of regular contractor meetings where they discuss KPIs. So that's a really good game changer in terms of the work that Kane's doing in that space. In terms of business improvements, we've had some communication courses across the council in the last quarter, They're actually run this quarter, but they were organised previous quarter. And it's expanded not just to, typically we've used training with the library and customer services staff. We've extended it out to our building staff, anyone who has our animal services team, to ensure that there's consistent training across the organisation, which has been a really big success. And then just thirdly, around just the water services, there's been a really pointed focus in the water services space, in particular the treatment plant, around ensuring that we have good SOPs, and also, and probably more importantly, is ensuring that we are meeting our obligations around ensuring that people have the right competency to perform those roles. In particular, working at heights and working with hazardous substances. That's been a bit of a risk for us previously. We haven't got an accurate record of who's done what. We've relied on long-standing staff members to give us assurance in that space. Now we'll be recording that in Assure. Open for questions.
Questions? Councillor Bray, thank you.
Thanks for the report. Just the excessive annual leave, do we think we'll ever get on, I'll use the word to get on top of this, or how do we, this is something I see, it's crucial for staff to be able to take time when they feel they need to take time, and the workloads seem to be pretty massive at the moment. How do we achieve the desired outcome of getting these people to take their leave?
So, in regards, it's a tough one, right? Because we are a small organisation. Though there should be no excuse that everyone should be able to take their 5 weeks annual leave each year. The issue, and I suppose just to give a little bit of clarity, we have used quite a small number to gauge excessive leave. 25 days is normally organisations have a higher benchmark, but as an ELT we really want to manage this leave because it's a really good, not just for well-being, but it's a good financial lever for us as well. I suppose at the moment our strategy is that ELT members get regular reporting on the people who have excessive leave balances, and the expectation from our CE is that we have individual plans for those staff members. Again, I suppose the use of having better technology enables us to, through our HR system, people can project how much leave they got for 12 months, so that leave planning's easier, if that makes sense.
The risk of burnout of these people is very high, and they all come highly skilled and integral to the team, and we can't really afford to have that maybe a 6-month departure from the staff.
Yeah, I mean, the issue we have is, and it's not an excuse, but one of the contributing factors is, like I said earlier, we're a small organisation and sometimes we have single points of failure where expertise is held within one role, and this is where the key mitigations around that is really ensuring that we digitalise as much processes as we can. We cross-skill where we can. We have good succession plans in place, which ELT have completed. But there are significant risks, and some of the mitigations for those risks, if people get fatigued and leave, would be, like external contractors or so forth. So, for example, if my role, if I left quickly, we would need to bring in an external contractor as a mitigation, because we just don't have the depth to be able to do that.
Probably 5 of them, wouldn't we?
I don't know if we could replace it, to be honest, Bex.
Any other comment? I just want to pick up on that, right? Look, I do notice that there is while it's still high, right, I do notice there is if you look at the March 24 figure, right, so the December 23 figure on page 89, right, is low in the December 24 figure is lower than it was 12 months ago, it would be really good, you can't crystal ball, right, what the March 24 figure is, because people would have taken their leave, right, predominantly. And I hear you about excess leave. What I would be really keen to understand is, and I don't want to sort of bring up the highest, but to me is the number of staff is only one measure. Can we actually say is we've got 10 staff that are got excess of 50 days or something like that, just to say how big, because I don't believe 25 is overly excessive, because I used to have to manage how many days leave I could have. I used to bank a fair bit, and then I used to take a couple of months leave or something like that at a big, or take 20 days leave during the year and then take more at Christmas time.
I think we've got 50 days. It's more around the 10 people. So we have people that we can shift the 25 number.
I would leave the 25 number, but also maybe have another one underneath the number, because 50 is getting, that's when I think it's getting excessive.
2 years in total.
Yeah, that's when I think it's getting really excessive.
Yeah. We can
report on the dollar value.
I'm not worried by dollars, believe it or not, David, right? Yes, it is a risk, but I think it's the human issue is a higher priority from both an internal control, reliance on that one person, as well as is that a symptom of burnout, right? And that's the bit that. And I think it's going to get worse while we're talking burnout. We've only just begun, in my opinion, the Three Waters journey. It's going to ramp up significantly in terms of after you've got your water services plan approved, and what does that mean for the organisation and managing that expectation?
I remember too when I was, 100 years ago running radio stations, we went down to almost enforced 4-day weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And because a lot of people didn't want to take a week off or felt that they weren't dispensable.
Yeah.
And, a long weekend is often a way to edge it down and also give the person, and also often it brings lifts other people's skills because they have to actually rise to the occasion. So just whether that's an opportunity.
Yeah. Although I would actually insist that Mr. Paris, because he's got a key financial risk.
No, I'm on that.
I don't, David.
He's been on it for 20 years.
No, 20 years.
No. That someone like David, we actually have a policy of he actually takes at least 2 weeks from an internal control perspective off, right?
Consecutively.
2 weeks in one block.
Yes,
because consecutively. Otherwise, someone like David could manage. I'm not saying you do this, please, right? Don't get me wrong, right? But someone with financial influence, if they're just taking all their leave, basically taking long weekends, can work around that internal control. And that can happen.
I think you're sort of moving into business continuity planning, right?
Well, no, I'm talking about fraud.
Yeah.
I also don't want them to resign and then we'd be lumped with a massive
We do have someone with governance skills who's manager.
Anything further comment? I mean, I think the question I was asking you about, I think it's probably an ELT issue, right? Is how we're going to manage the increase on demand for critical people after the 3rd of September. In terms of the Three Waters.
we do work as an ELT around workforce planning and look at critical roles as well as critical people, as well as succession planning and so forth. So we do add some rigour around that process, and you're right about any big project, it needs to be resourced properly, so that will be part of the formation of any project team when it comes to whatever decision is made around water transition. We would look at it from a skill-based lens.
Thank you. Councillor Goodwin.
And we're obviously seeing this around different places. I mean, it's there's worry about stranded overheads.
Well, that's another debate, Council. It's not part of, right? It's part of a wider discussion, right? Not part of on this agenda, right? I agree that that's a risk, right? Stranded overheads, but I think there are more pressing issues about the three waters, or the two waters of local water done well, other than stranded overheads. There might be a way of overcoming that. Okay? All right.
Would be...
No, it's not the agenda item.
No, I know, but it is sometimes interesting to get someone who moves around other parts,
Can we defer... I'm sure the local water done well will come up in that public excluded, and maybe we can have a discussion about it, because I might have some answers.
Yep.
All right?
Yep.
So any further questions or comments on... yeah, comment, absolutely.
Yeah, where's he gone?
He's run away over the far
No, stay
side.
there. I just want to say I'm still excited about the staff engagement survey result at 75%. Because it's noted in there.
Thank you.
So let us not forget.
Yeah, it's awesome, mate.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, do I have a mover? And any further comments? Do I have a mover for the recommendation on page 86? So you're going to move it then, because you're excited, all right? Oh, you'll move it? Councillor Stella, seconded Councillor Beggs. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Right. Now, it's on page 96, the next item, but it's a separate item. It was when was it emailed out? Yesterday. Okay. Yesterday, our 6-month financial report. Ta-da. Give you 30 seconds to swap over screens if you need to.
Kindly.
David, take your report as read. Key highlights.
Well,
key.
it's a bit hard if you haven't had a chance to read it.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh.
For the rest of the members, but it's 6 months to date, so we're halfway through the financial year. Overall, the statement of revenue and expenditure is slightly more deficit than we budgeted, and some of that is around depreciation being higher than we budgeted for as a result of the building revaluation that was done at the 30th of June 2024. Some of those buildings coming in at higher values or lower remaining life, and therefore generating a higher depreciation number. And other costs relate to additional costs in the operating expenditure area of the cyclone repair work that was budgeted as capital that we can't capitalise. So some of the roading work that they've been doing in response to the cyclone damage, it doesn't result in a new asset. It repairs the road, but it's repairs rather than new assets. So it's an accounting definition. We budgeted for it. We'll get the subsidy from NZTA for the work, and our share is funded the same as the balance of the work, which was loans to complete the Cyclone Gabriel repair work.
Might I ask a question on that, David? Did you impair that asset?
Yes.
So if you impair the asset, it shouldn't actually go ultimately through P&L.
Well, there's $18 million of work. What we're talking about here is $380,000.
Okay. So that's the difference. So it actually probably cost you more than what was the impairment? Maybe you and I have another, because we're going to lose everyone if we're talking impairment.
Yeah.
Right.
The revenue area, we're up 9.3% on fees and charges year to date, and the star performer is the building control area, and Shane sitting over there, he'd be able to comment about the increase in consents that have come through compared to last year. We're 66% up on budget in the revenue in the building fees area, And that difference has pretty much wiped out the extra insurance costs that we're paying for liability insurance. So that's a bonus that will come in within our budget for the building control area because we've had better revenue to offset the cost that we didn't anticipate.
Before Councillor Goodwin asked me the question, you're the first council to be up in the building consent area and financial contribution area around all my councils. So why is Masterton ahead of the game compared with the rest of the country in terms of building consent activity?
Everyone's coming up here.
Yeah, it's a great place to live. Our town rocks.
They run a positive campaign from the council. It
Greg
makes
doesn't,
people
we
go
do.
and do things.
Yeah.
Because the trend elsewhere...
And ask Shane when he's going through the report.
His report later on. Okay, there you are, Shane. Put that one in your memory banks. But to me, so from a financial perspective, most councils are behind the eight ball in terms of fees and charges for building consents because of the lack of...
It's the economy.
It's the economy. It's nothing the council's doing.
So it's got nothing to do with us, essentially. It just follows its own rule.
I don't know, council. It's just got a positive impact, but we'll move on. Right, anything else, David? Sorry to interrupt, but I thought while you were talking about it.
I'll move on to the rates requirement statement, and that is 1.3% overall underspent. So pretty close to budget, 6 months to date across all activities with some overs and unders. And those are described in the variance information in the report. And then there's a capital statement where halfway through the year and 32% of the overall capital budget is spent. And again, there's some detailed commentary against each activity area as to what made up the capital budget in those areas and why we may or be under or over the year-to-date expenditure. There's some projects that haven't started, others are well underway, or the airport in particular, we've had $4.5 million spent in the first half of the year as the runway reseal project finished, and now they're on to the second part of that project down there. And the rates receivable is the last section of the report, and you'll see the numbers are still going up in terms of rates arrears. The amount of prior year arrears, so that's on the graph that has the green and red bars. The red bar is the prior year arrears and how much we've collected that was outstanding at 30th of June. 6 months into the year, we've collected about the same as we had the year before. So the prior year arrears aren't growing. The current two instalments is the green bar. That's what's outstanding there. And the second graph with the blue bars, that shows the percentage of the current instalments that are outstanding. And we're just under 4%, 3.9%. And that's consistently been between 3 and 4% over the last 4 years at December. So it's climbing. It's gone from 3 to 3.9 over 4 years. But again, it's a trend upwards, but it's not a concern.
That's a 30% increase, isn't it?
But we've probably increased rates 30% that much, Councillor, over that time.
No, but it's all relative.
No, it's not relative when it comes to
the increase
to the arrears amounts. Yeah.
Do we ever set a target of what we'd like to get that back to? I understand that it is what it is and it's slowly going, but can we not somehow set a target of what we'd like it to reduce to? I'm not saying get rid of them altogether because that's never going to happen, but I feel like it's all good just saying they keep going up and that's why, but could we maybe look at how we could stop them going up?
The end of June, the end of each financial year is a good marker point, and we have had consistently 1.3% achieved or outstanding rates, 1.3% of the total rates levied for the year. We're closer to 2% now, so that's creeping up. So if we could get it back to 1.5 by the 30th of June, that would be good.
Yeah. I guess it's just a matter of what we do. I know the staff are really good at managing that part of the council, but I just wonder if there's other out-of-the-box ideas we can think of that can assist people in, paying off their debt.
More people on direct debit is good, and we still encourage that, but there is some resistance to direct debits.
Do we offer, this sounds ridiculous and tell me to shut up if it's a silly idea, but do we offer a discount for people that do commit to a direct debit?
They don't get charged a penalty.
Oh, yeah?
They used to give a discount to people that pay more.
It used to be a
No, but
discount.
I wonder if people actually know, but they've just said that you don't get a penalty if you put it on a direct debit.
Of course you don't,
But that's great though, but I wonder how many people...
You get another month to pay though.
Yeah.
If you're paying a direct debit either weekly or monthly, you actually get to pay the last instalment in June.
Yes.
Whereas everyone else has had to pay on the 20th of May.
That's a good point. So that's a good, so I wonder if we could, I don't know, maybe educate people on that as a good option. A, you get a little longer to pay, and B, you'll never be up for a penalty.
As long as it doesn't bounce.
As long as it doesn't
Bounce, yeah. It's just a question of how you can squeeze that, keep squeezing them.
Right, Councillor David.
David, I was just going to, the bulk of them urban or rural, is a breakdown of any way? I just wondered because I know the farmers have done it tough. I just wonder if they're paying the limits.
I don't have that. Okay. Sorry, David, I don't have that information.
That would be good question, Hon.
We can do that analysis.
Please.
And I think also locations.
Commercial as well.
Yep. Councillor Stewart,
One more
you've got
question.
another
Just in regards to page 6, where we have a lot of the red, the plan, I guess, I know as the court, as we get through the year, they change, but have you got any sort of projection that some of these will stay in the red, and if yes, by sort of how much? Are we going to look at some worsening scenarios in some of these areas, or are they going to kind of correct themselves throughout the year?
The urban sewerage one may not recover, and there's some project work involved in that, and some of it can be capitalised, but some of it can't. So we're doing hydraulic modelling to find out more information about the network.
Yeah.
It doesn't add to the asset, it's a piece of information, so it's hard to capitalise. I think the recreation centre also won't recover by year end, and that the operation of the facility, the maintenance costs, we're probably under budgeted again, given what work they had to do recently.
Yeah, and then the housing for the elderly, is that made up mainly of those Penrith court costs?
Some of it is, yes, the costs associated with the High Court, but also there was a few weeks where we didn't get the rent put up. We have to give notice, and we hadn't given notice in time, so that we had, with the budget, expected 12 months of an increase in the rents, and it didn't occur quickly enough.
With the rec centre, who does the assessment? Do the people running the business do the assessment
of the assessment of the plant?
Yeah, well, you said that you didn't realise it was as bad as it was. Does that come back from Waters and Stevens? Or?
Yeah, I think the dive pool repairs of the pipe work where they were leaking water underground, and that has come back at a reasonable cost. But Aldrich and Stevens are a contractor who do the regular assessments and keep the plant running, and do the refurbishment of the plant as required. And when we had a shutdown in July, there was a whole lot of work done while the building was closed.
Councillor Goodwin and Councillor Tim.
Is there in solid waste and also solid waste always strikes me that one of our main aims is to reduce the kilograms per capita per year, whatever. And as soon as it goes down, our budget goes out. It seems a crazy thing to have, to not be somehow turned into a positive thing, where our policy is to reduce the quantity, but it comes up as a negative in the financials.
The council offers a service to the ratepayers of Masterton to dispose of refuse, and there's some fixed costs associated with the transfer station. Doesn't matter how many tonnes come through it, we're going to pay the fixed costs to have a transfer station weighbridge in sight. Those fixed costs, we price the rubbish charges at the gate to cover the fixed costs and the variable costs. The tonnage goes down, we still pay the fixed costs, and we don't meet budget. That's it really. And putting more into recycling, the recycling is paid for from rates, not from user pays. It's a budget challenge always if we're in the waste business, and there's a lot of private businesses in the waste business as well, so the council's in quite a dynamic space.
Well, can I ask Philip, do other councils find a way around that to make it more of a work?
Solid waste is a significant problem for most councils. Right? The more you put the fees up, the costs go elsewhere. Like the rubbish goes elsewhere. Right?
Dumping elsewhere.
Okay. So it's a really difficult problem to solve. We should do it. Right, Councillor Tim and Councillor Marama.
Thank you. Just in regards to personnel costs, they're over 2.8% over. Is there a specific reason for that? May have been shared in the previous meeting, but I can't remember.
There was some restructuring of the organisation done in July and August, and there have been some costs associated with that reorganisation, and they weren't budgeted for, but they're expected to work their way out of the system over the next 6 months. And by year end we should be on budget.
Is it for that emergency person, and we're going to get funding back from the other two?
No. The recovery staffing was allowed for in the budget.
Okay. Councillor Marama, your question?
The economic development, what's caused that to be in the region, right?
Yes, I do know that. I'll come back to you.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? I've got one for you, David, just to prove I've read it. Page 5. You've got increased interest revenue, and you've got of 400,000. Well done. But you've also got interest expense. So I thought it might have been pre-funding that you invested the money, but the interest expense hasn't been as high as.
There is some pre-funding there.
People know what I mean by pre-funding?
We have a loan maturity that we pay back to LGFA, and I think it's a $5 million maturity. We paid it at the end of July. We borrowed that money back in the previous November, so we're paying interest on it. We put it on deposit and we get interest back on the other side, and we don't lose money. We try not to lose money, and that we invest it for at least as much as what we're paying in interest. But we know we have borrowed at a good interest rate, and we're not exposed to an interest rate fluctuation when it comes to the actual maturity date. So if we repay in July and LGFA's margins are affected by a market spike, we have to take it then. We borrowed early as a risk mitigation. So we get interest on both sides.
Consistent with your treasury policy. Okay. It's called managing your liquidity risk. Right. So
We've also had some government funding both for the airport and for better off funding, I think it is, that we've had in the bank earning interest.
Excellent.
Which is why our interest revenue is ahead of plan.
Substantial, David.
Yeah, yeah.
Will that eventually be transferred over to take that holiday airport account for the RED?
So the question, can I rephrase your question for you? So what you're saying is the money that we had in advance of the Hood Aerodrome on deposit, can we actually credit that to the airport account to actually reduce the RED? And I know what your answer is going to be, but you can answer that one. Comes up in the watch.
It does. There's this thing called jam jar accounting that you keep moving money around to make things balance. But overall, within the council, we've got that extra revenue, and we're looking to make sure it is utilised. And if it's not needed against the airport, we won't credit it against the airport. We'll credit it against the reserve funds, and it'll be available for other projects. The interest, not the. We are accounting for the government money back to the government correctly.
Okay. All right.
I'm still at the jam jar stage.
All right. Any other questions on the financials? Thank you, David.
I'll come back.
You'll come back.
With a question
and a bit more explanation to me, thanks. All right. So basically, we've got a recommendation there that we receive the 6-month financial report and commentary. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Second, Councillor David. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Next item, page 97, page 6.10. I did see Karen pop up. Welcome, Karen. Are you there? Yes, she's coming. Welcome, Karen. Take your...
Yes, hello, Chair Paul. Good afternoon, everyone.
We'll take your report as read already. So do you want to talk key highlights? And technically it's David's report as well, but we'll go straight to Karen if that's okay, David. Mm-hmm. All right, Karen, thank you. Floor's yours.
Thank you. Thank you. The key highlights overall, probably that we've found the council's performance in my time on the audit anyway, the last few years has been very consistent, consistently good is how I'd sum it up. We have issued an unmodified audit opinion. There was one unadjusted misstatement, which is in the representation letter. That misstatement is individually and collectively immaterial to the audit. There were a handful of corrected misstatements, but on the whole, we were happy with the performance of the council, and the audit has gone well. We have made some recommendations for improvement. None of them are in the urgent category. We have noted management's progress with prior year recommendations. I think overall progress is being made. It has been challenging for the council, especially with competing priorities around changes arising from central government, including water reforms. But the council has made the right decision to defer the audit to allow it to properly prepare its annual report and ensure that the supporting information for the annual report is appropriate and that it has time to complete the quality assurance processes which it takes pride in doing, and that's overall reflected in the quality of not only the annual report but the supporting information that we receive for audit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, Councillor Bex?
Can this be a question for David?
Absolutely. It's David's report.
Okay,
as well.
thank you. I've got 3 questions. Will you be updating the Forward and Code of Conduct policies, because there's a recommendation in there? And how will you change the circular approval which has been criticised? Because I also think it's a bit onerous if it comes back to the Audit and Risk Committee, which is one of the recommendations, but you know, if it's coffee and a muffin, it's a complete waste of time, I think, for an Audit and Risk Committee. And I also wondered whether that had been discussed with Philip, because it recommends that you might have some recommendations on that. So those are my questions.
I'll let you go first, David, over the fraud and code of conduct.
I suppose it's a discussion I'll be having with Karen when we go through the next interim audit stage, as to we'll suggest some improvements to the process of sign-off for the sensitive expenditure items that we're talking about. So it's within the policy, and it's who signs off whose expenditure that is defined as sensitive expenditure, and the controls around that. And the idea is you can't have somebody who reports to somebody who signs off something because of the potential conflict or pressure that employee might be under. But there's a level of materiality around that sign-off and wastage of time, people's time signing off minor amounts. So I'll be suggesting to Karen that we put in some criteria around dollar values, and we'll try and come to some agreement. I'm not sure.
I just wonder what other councils
Oh, so I'm not sure what every council does, but for a number of mine, I get an email on a monthly basis. Here's the Mayor's expenses for the month. It has already been prepared by the Mayor's EA or the Chief Executive's EA. The Chief Executive has signed it off, and I electronically approve it.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Right? So that's on a monthly basis. It takes me all of about 5 minutes, right? And that then alleviates the need for formal reporting back to the Audit and Risk Committee. So that's quite a common approach. The other approach I don't like is actually, because I think it's a waste of time, where the credit card details are reported to the Audit and Risk Committee on a quarterly basis. So it's actually after the horse is bolted, right? Because you can't hold up payment for a quarterly meeting. Now how you manage that is up to council, right? But the principle, as David has already alluded to, it's about that the Mayor shouldn't sign off the Chief Executives, and the Chief Executive shouldn't sign off the Mayors as a point of principle, because, you know, I'm not saying you do this, Gary. Look, here's my one. You sign mine off, and I'll sign yours. Okay.
I haven't had one signed off yet.
Okay. Right. Well, the other way to do it is for, and this is also quite common, is for the Deputy Mayor to sign off the Mayors.
We do have the Deputy Mayor sign off.
Right? So if the Chief Executive is signing off, so if the Mayor's signing off the Chief Executives, then the Mayors could be signed off by the Deputy. Right? But that can, in some councils, be political.
Yeah.
Right?
We get the Deputy Mayor and signing off everything.
That is fraught with.
Yeah. I mean, so that's why I'm saying it's a council decision what you do, right? So I think it's well, David's going to have a discussion with Karen.
And best practice is what Karen's recommending.
Yeah.
We look at it as practicality as well.
Is that
Good
Karen
argument. And risk.
as the acting? Karen, I see, okay.
This is Karen as well.
Karen, yeah. Don't worry, I've got it. Don't worry.
Karen's everywhere.
Yeah, Karen's everywhere.
What did, I'm sorry, but Kate, could you just say again what you...
So that interaction between CE, Mayor and Deputy Mayor is really fraught with
conflict, risk.
Yeah, risk. It's a whole thing that you've I mean, it's not something was interested to hear that is how it is done now.
That's why it's been picked up.
Yeah, I mean, there are other ways of doing it, so I think what needs to happen is David has a conversation with Karen Young, right? And then that has actually said, this is what we have agreed, and it comes back to council for formal sign-off.
It was like previously with the code of conduct. If you made a code of conduct to be select a member, went to the mayor. And then the mayor would go, oh no, it's not a problem here. But now it's independently assessed, which is the way it should be.
I mean, I have also seen it at the chair of the finance committee. Right? If you have a finance committee or another committee actually signs off on me as well. You know, there's different. You know, it's got to. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's got to be horses for horses, right? And it's got to work effectively and efficiently, but with those principles in mind. Does that answer your question, Councillor Bex?
Thank you.
Any other questions on the report? All right, I've got a couple, Karen. Question, in terms of your recommendations, probably the easiest way is back on page 101 of the agenda, page 4 of your report. You talk about new recommendations and that the fair value assessment prepared by management is then peer reviewed. Question probably for David, how do you feel about the peer review? What I see is an increased cost for council, and just whether you want to comment on that before I ask Karen what's the rationale for it.
Okay, I did include in the management comment in the detailed response to that was that the council staff know their assets and the condition factors around them, and so a peer review is only ever going to be checking the validity of the process, not necessarily the actual assets, but also that we have long life assets and we have underground assets that are very hard to assess their condition and their remaining useful life. And to do it annually as an accounting standard, because an accountant has said the best assessment of fair value is to do an assessment every year, imposes quite a cost on the organisation. And I question whether that is a cost that comes with any benefit in terms of our managing of the assets. So that's a criticism of the accounting standard, not necessarily the auditors who are telling us to comply with the accounting standard.
Can I just rephrase that? Look, I mean, the accounting standard just says you've got to do an assessment to say whether you need to do a revaluation and is your carrying value actually fair.
That's fine.
What I am seeing though, Karen, is, and it's not only from Audit New Zealand, is actually that fair value is actually, traditionally undertaken by staff, but there's almost an insistence by audit providers that it's done by a professional. And I just want to know what the changes that requires it to be done by a professional. Whereas you've heard from David that often they've actually got the best indication of what's happening with unit rates and potentially lies.
The rationale is around robustness of such assessments because, and in particular, which indices are used. So, because these are large dollar values, potentially different indices could have a significant impact on the dollar value and therefore the results of the fair value assessment. So it's all about ensuring the robustness of such assessments. So it's really on management to demonstrate about the robustness. So independent review or advice can take different ways. With the infrastructural assets, David had talked to us about him getting advice from an independent valuer. He was well on his way to seeking such advice, but then when the valuer at the time hadn't responded, so David actually changed tack and sought advice from elsewhere. But I think it's just now that you're moving the process in-house, which we don't disagree with, because it's up to you how you comply, demonstrate that you're complying with the standard, and we audit in accordance with the auditing standards, and in particular the one on estimates. So I guess it's that rub is how I would put it. We're certainly not insisting that it be done a certain way. Rather, we are encouraging management to ensure that it is robust, because potentially it could change the fair value assessment. Does that make sense? Would you like me to elaborate, or that provides you with enough information?
I think I know the issues. I'm debating at another group, Karen, but I just thought it was useful for the community to understand it. Right?
How is that affected by recent discussions about local audit and well have highlighted the asset condition information that councils hold is could be a lot better. So
you want me to? Are you asking me or are you asking Karen?
Whatever.
I mean, so I'm going to jump in there. I know a lot about the original guidelines on revaluations. The issue is being updated as we speak. The issue is that this is a problem with both fair value and revaluations. They are only, as Karen referred to, as they're only estimates. I want to be a little bit more blasé. They're only guesstimates, right? Because they are based on unit rates which are currently based on current contracts. Now the problem is when you are planning a major replacement of an asset, you may end up with a significantly different unit rate. And I've got one council that had a valuation done 2 years ago when they replaced a significant amount of their pipes, because it was a large contract over quite a long period. The unit rate that was applied was 75% less than the valuation rate 2 years ago because of efficiencies. So that's the trouble when you're using estimates, because it's based on a unit rate, but you need to fully understand how that unit rate has been arrived at. And I'm going to pick on Wellington. If you applied Wellington City Council's unit rates to the Wairarapa, you would be grossly overvaluing your assets because of the unit rates that are required in Wellington City are very high because of two factors. They need to do the work urgently, plus they've also got probably three factors. They need to do the work urgently, so that puts the rate up. They're working in a constrained physical environment with tall buildings either side, and they've also got horrendous traffic management, where you probably don't have those factors here. So that, right, I think that's the rate issue. The other issue then you've got to do is what you've just referred to is the useful lives. Until a pipe fails, you don't know how long it's actually going to last for. and this is the problem, there's an expectation that you can actually say a pipe is going to last 60 years or 80 years or 100 years. Well, you don't know that because it's a variety of a number of factors. So that's the problem we've actually got with revaluations, which is then causing problems because we've got an auditing and accounting standard that are applied for. Does that sum it up, Karen?
Yes, Phil, because with infrastructural assets, they're valued based on replacement value. So you can imagine if you don't understand the condition of your assets, and because some councils understand and have good condition information on it, assets, others not so much, especially when those assets are aged. They've been in the ground a long time, and therefore the only information they've got on the condition of their assets is based on the age of the assets, which is a good proxy for knowing the real condition of the assets, because knowing that age assumes that all the assets condition deteriorates at the same time based on the age, but that's not always the case. For instance, if your pipes are underground and salt water gets to them, then they might disintegrate at a higher rate than those that are inland. Also, what affects the condition of the pipes is the material or the composition of the pipes themselves. So there's a lot to take into account. And that is why it's important to have good age information.
Good condition information,
Yes. Oh, sorry, good condition information on the pipes, yes.
The accounting standard requires us to produce a balance sheet that reflects the value of the assets that we have looked after, and it's getting the most accurate value. And to me, too much effort in that area and not enough effort in controlling how much we're spending on activities is putting our efforts in the wrong places. So I just want to make that point that asset valuations are not a significant factor in value for money for ratepayers.
Yeah, and I would I would agree with that. Right, you're actually better off, right, if you can reduce your valuation costs and use that money to get better age and condition information. From a ratepayer perspective, you'd actually end up with a win-win, but it will take time.
Does the truth come out in that if you undervalue your assets over a period of time, you'll say, well, look, the expenditure's way over what we're depreciating.
I think,
we're not undervaluing, it's the effort that we have to go to and cost that we have to go to get accurate valuations.
Yeah. I mean, you will always have a shortfall in depreciation because we haven't been accounting for such a long time. So that's a given, right? You're not going to have enough money in the bank to replace your assets.
But at least we can look at our annual depreciation, our annual expense, and get a sense of which way we're going.
It's useful, but not definitive. Right? Right. Anything further on your management report, Karen, or David, or committee members? No.
And nothing further. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
So we've got a recommendation on page 97 of the report. Can I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Beck, seconded Mayor Gary. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Now we've got a late item on the building supplementary information that was circulated. I'm calling that 6.1, I don't have a page number. Right? That was Harriet, when was it sent out? Yesterday?
Is it an email or?
No, it's the supplementary. See, the one you haven't opened, the grey one at the top.
That means you haven't read it, councillor.
Yeah. Yeah.
No questions allowed.
Yeah.
Right?
We'll keep you to that.
Sorry?
We'll keep you to that.
Yep, haven't read the item. No. Thank you. Can't we take your report as read because some people haven't read it. Key highlights and key issues. Thank you.
I suppose overall the applications and activity looks pretty much the same as last year for this year, so it's tracking in line. So it felt like commercial consents are on the boil a lot. That doesn't seem the case. It's just the same as we did the year before. But yeah, just tracking along like we have been, I suppose. I don't have anything. Had an IANS report to note, so they come in November. They found 13 general non-compliances. Probably half of them are procedures, so things to do with our procedures need rewritten, clarified, things like that. Pretty minor, and then just in our training space, just some tidy up work there in terms of tracking training for our staff, and another simple one like thermometers, making sure we calibrate them properly. So in your reference thermometer, for instance, one of the findings was it had a 3-degree variance. Well, we need to make sure that's applied through when we test all our other thermometers. So just really minor findings that they found, but it does, despite that, it does take quite a lot of work to close these out, because we have to rewrite the procedure, we have to train the staff, and then we have to run work through anything that changes, and that is all sent to IANS, and they have to agree with all those steps and everything that's done along the way. So we're just near on the end of closing them all out. We're hoping by the end of this week that we'll have everything back to IANS. So at this point we've closed out 10 of the 13 findings, so there's just three left to go.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a few questions. Just in regards to training around, or what training are we doing or have we done for the team to understand the changes within the proposed district plan, and how can we ensure consistency of knowledge amongst the team when that really comes, well, it's already in play, I guess, with the proposed district plan, but
So it does bounce between, I suppose, both the teams, so the work does go through there. Our team quickly grabbed the planning team, one of the planners, just on any issues that we think might be an issue for the building consent process, and that's referred back. But all the consents are referred through the planning team anyway, and Christine's team picks them up on the fly as they're going.
Cool. And then just one other one, just around the rejections, due to the lack of information or incorrect details. I think I have raised this before, about what are we doing here to assist our community, assist our community, so we can eliminate those rejections. And then can you confirm that there's consistency across your team of consent issuers and inspectors around the decisions they make? So basically, one inspector doesn't say one thing and the other says another. Is there a clear, consistent methodology around how we make our decisions?
So we give them all the same training. I actually deliver a lot of the training myself around the Building Act changes and code changes, just to make sure we're on all got the same understanding, which you do get variances. I won't say that you don't. I suppose that's one of the IANS finding, is just to track that training a little harder, just to make sure we are getting those right, consistent answers to everybody. What was the rest of your question, sorry?
No, I think that was just confirming that there is consistency across the teams. I guess I do get feedback from varying, whether it's a builder or a homeowner doing renos, where, I guess the decisions or the rejection reasons are not actually consistent across the board. So it becomes confusing,
There can be so many minor details why those decisions are changed. It kind of goes right back to the building code. So it's not a set of rules, it's a set of performance measures you try to achieve. And so people design that way, and then we've got to go and approve and inspect that way. So you do get these minor variations. We do try, though, with the training to try and get the team as consistent. And we do audit all their work as well, so just to try and get that consistency of, if someone's doing something slightly different, then through those audits we can actually say, well, we just get to move this way a little.
I can back still on that one, and I just wondered, when you're setting a consent for a building, do you often have to consult with Greater Wellington if it's a wetter spot or something like that?
Not if it's a Greater Wellington issue, we'll usually be in contact with the applicant to let them know that they need to contact with Greater Wellington, but we don't have a great, I suppose, don't have a great overlap with them as such. It's
different.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to be really clear on that point that Shane made, that may not be apparent, that each of the consents depend on a case-by-case basis, so it may not be apparent between one builder to another on something that actually is materially different, that actually resulted in a different decision. So that might not be apparent, but that doesn't mean to say that there's inconsistency in decision making. It's because of what they're actually making decisions on.
Yeah. Cool, thank you.
Councillor Goodwin.
You stop me if I'm going in the wrong direction.
Oh, yes, no, you haven't read the report, so you can't.
I'm not listening to you. There was recently a case of a business that was told it needed more toilets than was eventually, and it was in the paper. Can we talk about that? Or, I mean, it's bad publicity, frustrates, drives business nuts, and is this the right venue to talk about it?
Happy to have a quick
We
chat
don't want to talk about the
it.
specifics, but we can talk about the process.
Yep, so the process is for a building, when you're going to build it, there's a set of calculations you use out of the building code to say how many people are going to be in that building, and then based on that it says you've got to have X amount of facilities. So in this particular case you're talking about, I think the code said you needed about facilities for 42 people, but you can modify that down. So we modified it down to, I think, 9 people, and the owner basically said, well, I'm only going to ever have 4 people in there. And so we stuck to what the building code required, and of course the owner disagreed with that and went to MB and said, I only have 4 people and that's what you should rely on, and MB said, yep, sure. And so then we were basically had to reverse our decision on it.
So I want to, sorry, it's a really important point again that we need to expand on, that the MB determinations process is part of the process, and MB put that provision in so that if there was a disagreement as to the interpretation of the legislation, rather than going to court and spending oodles of money on lawyers, then that could be like an adjudication process. And it's similar to the Ombudsman. It's all part of the process. It doesn't necessarily mean that council's done something wrong. It just means that there's a difference of opinion. And this was certainly the case in this case. So it's nothing to be frightened of or to be concerned about. It's actually just part of the process that we have in New Zealand.
It's when you talk to business people involved, whether it's, I don't know, complaints about sound, number of toilets they need or what have you, it just creates a very negative and it's a difficult, it's been raised by some members that, you know, if we could do that better, it does more than anything else we do to encourage business. And I know for myself, I've had a few houses in Wellington over the years. In Wellington, in my judgment, their staff, when you deal with them, say, look, you're not quite there, but it'll do. You're going in the right direction. Whereas I question whether you would get that sort of thing here.
Can I say, right, that's a high-risk environment, right? Can I just unpick this toilet issue, right? Because I think it's a really good example. So the building code, in council's opinion, said based on whatever, they could have 9 people in it, right? But the building owner says, I'm only ever going to have 4. Now, when the building owner sells it, what's stopping the new owner putting 9 in?
Or 20.
Or 29, right? So, and look, I hear what you're saying, right? The issue is we've got rules. If Wellington says, oh, near enough is good enough, and the next building owner says, oh, council didn't do a really good job on this one, guess who they're going to come after? Not the previous building owner, I can assure you of that. They're going to come after us, right? So that is, because of that liability issue, which you all know about, right, we've got to play with a straight bat, right? Now, as Karen has said, right, there is a process if you disagree with what council has concluded. Right? Now, it's part of, as Karen has said, it's part of the process, right? It's unfortunate that we've got these really rigid rules, right? But unfortunately, the rigid rules protect not the current building owner, but the future building owner and council. Councillor Stewart.
I guess that came back to my first question then, which I've mentioned before, around what do we do as council to assist our people through these processes, and are we just as much process friendly as we are people friendly? Because I'm going to be honest with you, the feedback I've had, and I know David Hines will back me up here, is that Masterton is known, and nothing against the staff or anything like that, but it's a general comment that has been fed back to me time and time again now, that Masterton District building compliance is one of the trickiest ones to work with in New Zealand. So therefore, my question is, does that show, is that a possible risk of future development, economic growth, subdivision, all those sorts of things? When, are we, I get it, we have to be processed, tick all the boxes, but is there a better balance to be had around how we work with process and how we work with people?
Can I ask, did that person ever do any development in Tauranga?
I've had it by a couple of people, and mainly not from developers as such, but from builders.
Builders who built in Tauranga?
No, not builders, local builders
what I'm saying
correspond
is,
with.
right, so
So you found one that does it wrong?
Sorry?
So your name is one that did it wrong?
What do you mean?
That was Tauranga.
Well, no, Tauranga. Right?
I'm just thinking of the other 160 towns that do it.
Well, no, what I'm saying is the problem is people have got a perception, right? But if you talk to the builders in Tauranga, right? Right?
I don't talk to builders.
Yeah, I know. But you said every other council is, right? I think your statement was that every other council, Masterton is the worst in the country.
I didn't say every other council.
What did you say?
No, I said that there's a perception out in our community that our district council is one of the trickiest ones
The trickiest.
from a building compliance
in the country. What are they comparing it with? That's my question.
Can't it? It's always come out.
Yeah, and yet I haven't had any complaints. I've had people saying how wonderful they are to deal with, and they're like they're dropping session.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it, Karen. Right? I think we're getting off subject.
Yes.
But I'm saying if you get feedback from a person on that, the best thing to do is take that feedback straight to Shane.
Well, through the CA.
And with the person who's been affected, or ask them to lodge a request.
We're just talking about risk. I'm asking, have we got a risk around, installing growth? We're having the conversation.
Karen?
Yeah, our reputation is, very important to us, and we do identify that as part of our risk profile that we will talk about later on. And we do take accusations of that very seriously. And I can vouch for Shane and his team that the people side of it is most important. People in Shane's team have been on the other side, so they know how tricky it is, right, to get through the process. We have to deal with the legislation and the processes that we have to deal with, and liability is a big issue, but we do work as hard as we can. We've got I've forgotten the name of the helping businesses who are setting up in our area.
Taking care of business.
Taking care of business. For some reason it never sticks in my brain.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And that was an attempt from the regulatory teams all joining up and saying, actually, how can we do this better for people who are coming to want to set up business in our town so that they get a better customer service. And Corinne's team, Corinne in Customer, who looks after specifically customer services, is also looking at how we can improve the customer and that's customers, people of regulatory services, not just other services and facilities. And within Ben's team, we've got a big technology project as well that's looking at how we can make that end-to-end process a lot easier for people. So we do take it serious and we are doing lots of things.
So if we want to go back to your issue about risk, right, and perception, maybe, I'm not sure if you do it, do you actually do customer feedback forms on your building?
We did a survey last year, I think.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Councillor Alderman?
Could I ask, are you only dealing with big businesses or big buildings here?
Everything, right from
Well,
sheds right through to commercial.
Yeah, well, I've recently had to apply for consent, and I must say that we use the thing that we got through our email of where we were up to. I found it very helpful, so
Thank you. All right, anything other on both these reports,
That's mine, sorry.
Oh, okay. I'll see you in the pub later, right? So this is about building and planning update. No further questions or comments?
Just around the rejected you asked about as well. So I'll talk about the building consents. Often if we don't do that, it's because the applications aren't the best.
Yeah.
And when we don't, they end up exceeded in the 20 days because we end up in backwards and forwards, and a lot of them in that space. Probably, I looked at it the other day, 70% had 20 or more RFIs on a single consent, some up to 76. Well, that's a lot of people's time and
quality of the application, right?
Yeah, so we try and avoid that. And the one on the code compliance certificate is a little bit misleading because basically Reject 47, we have to make a decision at 12 months. That's what the law says. So even though the people are building their house, basically at 24 months we've got to say whether we can issue the certificate or not, regardless if they're finished.
Oh, so they get bundled into that as well.
So they just get bundled into those numbers as well, so it inflates it greatly.
Can you separate the two?
You probably could.
Because then you will, that might make figures look better.
Yep.
Thank you. All right.
Cool. Thanks, Shane.
I know. I'm very conscious of that.
Do we need a resolution now?
No, what I was going to do, watch the space. Can I have a mover for the recommendation, please?
Yep.
All right. Seconded. Moved Councillor David, seconded Councillor Stella. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Guys, we've been going for more than 2 hours. Yes, we take a 15-minute break and reconvene, and we'll go in. Do you want to go to public excluded first? Okay, I was wondering that. You're moving public excluded. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Peaks. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Right, carried. Thank you. I want